And it was the moment that changed Australian political history. Have a look.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Best line ever. Prime Minister Gough Whitlam was dismissed by then Governor-General John Kerr, and today has been a very big day for history buffs with the release of correspondence between John Kerr and the Palace in the lead up to that infamous moment in 1975. The National Archive of Australia fought the publication of the letters after a decade-long battle with historian Jenny Hocking. In a press conference this morning, National Archives Director David Fricker explained why he fought the release of the letters after they were deposited to the archive by Sir John Kerr.
His instructions regarding the Palace letters required us to release the Palace letters only with the agreement of the monarch. So it is a point that I like to stress. It was his wish that the Palace had the final word.
On September 12, a few months before the November dismissal, Kerr wrote to the Queen discussing the reserved powers of the Governor-General, basically meaning his ability to dismiss the Prime Minister. There's a lot of information in the letters about the role the Liberal Party played and their plan to block supply or demand a half-Senate election. But there's no proof of any interference by the Liberal Party. Kerr played his cards close to his chest, admitting Prime Minister Gough Whitlam could call on the Queen to dismiss him. But ultimately, it turns out Kerr dismissed Gough Whitlam without informing the Queen of his decision. Here again is David Fricker explaining the contents of the letter, which you can see there on the screen, that Kerr sent to the Palace after the dismissal on November 11.
It is a fairly concise letter, 2 pages long. It has several attachments. He's attached to this the letter that he handed to the Prime Minister telling the Prime Minister he'd been dismissed. It attached his legal opinion from Garfield Barwick. And he attached also a letter which Mr Fraser wrote to Sir John at Sir John's request, upon the basis of which there were attachments to this. But this is the notification to the Palace of the dismissal. So just if I could go to that paragraph again, what interventions were happening, what role did the monarchy play? I should say I decided to take the step I took without informing the Palace in advance, because under the Constitution, the responsibility is mine. And I was of the opinion it was better for Her Majesty not to know in advance, though it is, of course, my duty to tell her immediately.
Robbo, I don't know about you, but I find this stuff fascinating.
I love it. I love this kind of thing because, you know, we all watch The Crown and, you know, I adore royal documentaries because it's such a different way of life to ours. This, though, to me, it's no less grubby than it was back then. I wasn't alive back then. I want to stress that. But having known about, you know, the yeah. You got a bit of the crows there. No, back to the topic. I still find this kind of grubby. So he is the Queen's representative in Australia, and he did this to save his own butt, really, didn't he? So to me, when he starts saying things like that, it sounds less
like that. And this is the first time we've had real insight.
No, but he said that he wanted to get make the decision quickly before Gough Whitlam had a chance to call an election and then have the ability to sack John Kerr.
No,
so
there were
constitutionally, was he?
There were a few things going on, and excuse me one second. There were a few things going on, and I watched the full press conference this morning. It was fascinating. So basically, Kerr was losing faith in the ability for Whitlam to govern. The Liberal Party were blocking supply, which was creating an impasse. And I hope I'm getting this right. The Liberal Party had decided that they were going to block supply, but were open to a half Senate vote, basically an election. I believe Whitlam didn't want any of that and was considering his options, but Kerr thought the best way forward was dismissing the government and allowing the public to vote. So that's essentially what happened. And it's interesting because I've always thought the same thing about John Kerr, but actually reading his correspondence with the Queen, which is available on the National Archives website, although it has crashed today, if you're trying to read it today, it is interesting just to see where he was coming from and how he justified where he was going and the information he got from the Palace, who warned him, this is a very big decision. and they also said that if the Prime Minister were to come seeking to dismiss the Governor-General, the Queen would take the side of the Prime Minister because that would be the protocol. So it's just all fascinating because this is one of the biggest political things to play out in this country. And I think we should absolutely, these letters will become part of the curriculum, I'm sure, when kids are studying this at school.
It's super fascinating. I think you're exactly right. It is such a massive thing that even if you weren't around then, even if you were born 20 years ago, whatever, you would know about this particular event because it's just pretty much one of the very few political events that we always remember. The other thing we've got to understand is it was a wonderful time back then because in the background of that, Norman Gunston was there in character behind Gough Whitlam, and as was Richard Carlton from 60 Minutes. He was there as well. So just for Australian theme and just Australian identity, that shot has got so much in it, and I also think that's why it carries so much weight and why so many people have differing opinions about what happened, why it should have happened. To be honest, Rob, just really quickly, I was almost certain in my little knowledge that John Kerr would have been Liberal. He was actually Labor, so that strengthens your thoughts here.
It's a Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.